Molweni Bahlali, I am back, and today we are going to be looking at the notion that Nelson Mandela sold us out. And the more I did research on this topic, the more I was even confused about what do we mean by the notion that Nelson Mandela sold us out. Nelson Mandela was educated under the white regime through missionaries and was able to be a lawyer in his life by the 1940s. And this is a clip from 1961 as to what he wanted and what the vision was for the ANC.
The Africans want the franchise on the basis of one man, one vote. They want political independence.
Do you see Africans being able to develop in this country without the European being pushed out?
We have made it very clear in our policy that South Africa is a country of many races. There is room for all the various races in this country.
From this clip, you can actually see that they wanted freedom in terms of being able to vote and having equal footing with the white people that were in the country. We fast forward to the treason trial. When he went into the treason trial, this is the famous speech that he gives on the last day. And he actually speaks about the fact that he has fought against black domination and he has fought against white domination. Listen.
I have cherished the idea of a democratic and free society in which all persons will live together in harmony and with equal opportunities. It is an idea for which I hope to live for and to see realized. But my Lord, if it needs be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die.
So when Nelson Mandela goes into Robben Island in 1964, his dream was to have a South Africa where everybody was equal, where everybody was able to vote and decide in the future of the country. And then we move into when he was let out of Robben Island in 1982. So according to multiple sources, the initial discussions around the new democratic South Africa started as early as 1982. And they were initiated actually by the private sector. Abo Harry Oppenheimer, the people who own the minerals and the mines in South Africa. This is also verified by the speech that Nelson Mandela actually makes in 1994 in December, that the fraction which was at that dinner, which represented the owners of the mines and the owners of the minerals and the natural resources in South Africa, actually initiated the discussions for a liberated South Africa. And they went to O.R. Tambo initially, and he said no. And then they went to Nelson Mandela, and he said yes. Why would the private sector want a liberated South Africa, number one? And number two, why would they be so dedicated and so serious for the liberation of South Africa? And Harry Oppenheimer is mentioned a lot in these discussions. Nelson Mandela eventually gets out of prison in the 1990s, and this is what he says in his speech.
Learn that you are still suffering under an inhuman system. The housing shortage, the school crisis, unemployment, and the crime rate still remain. The crisis in education that exists in South Africa demands special attention. The education crisis in black schools is a political crisis. It arises out of the fact that our people have no vote and therefore cannot make the government of the day responsive to their needs.
The whole speech was around people being able to vote, people being able to have a voice, people being able to be given the same opportunities in South Africa. And I was like, so what about everything else that people usually insinuate and talk about when it comes to the notion that Nelson Mandela sold out? And it was the issue of the land. And this is what Nelson Mandela had to say about the issue of the land.
If you study our basic policy document, the Freedom Charter, you will find that it is based on free enterprise. And the land, for example, there is no nationalization of the land. And the land is subject to individual ownership. And in actual fact, when the Freedom Charter is applied, when the provisions of the Freedom Charters are applied, capitalism amongst Africans will flourish as never before.
Today, wealthy white farmers continue to control more than 80% of the agricultural land, and their existing property rights are guaranteed in the new constitution.
We have set up a claims court which is busy examining, investigating, firstly, whether people can be given land from state land. And we're making progress as far as that is concerned. Secondly, there were people who were removed from their own land by force. And where those people can be returned to that land, we are returning them.
In fact, less than half of 1% of farming land has been given back.
Mandela was a capitalist. That's the first thing I got from the clip.
The only exception is a clause which calls for the nationalization of the mines, the financial institutions, and monopolies. That is done because of the conditions in the country. It's a clause which was actually adopted in the constitution of the present ruling National Party in the 40s. So there is nothing unique in that. There is no element of socialism in the policy of the ANC.
Initially, he believed that the mines should be nationalized. But then later on in Davos, he also, in conversations with Harry Oppenheimer, who didn't believe in nationalization, of course he didn't because it owns the mines, he came back and changed his mind, basically flip-flopped on the nationalization of the mines. He also flip-flopped on the nationalization of the Reserve Bank and also monopolies, because now he was truly in his free enterprise bag entirely. And that got me thinking, what do we mean when we say Nelson Mandela and the ANC sold out? Were we supposed to be a communist state? And I went to look at what the Freedom Charter was saying. And the Freedom Charter basically said that everything belongs to everybody that inhabits the country. And then I was like, maybe the ANC was like a communist party back in the day. And according to the CIA, FBI document, the ANC was never a communist party. And then even if you go into the ANC's website, it doesn't say anything about it being a communist party and those type of things. So what do we mean and what were we wanting from Nelson Mandela in terms of his deliverables? Because he did deliver on what he wanted, which was like equal rights and everybody's ability to vote and to have a voice in the country and everybody to be afforded the same opportunities, which is what everybody currently has right now. And I was thinking maybe our problem is with capitalism, because Cyril is literally in bed with the same people that the ANC and Nelson Mandela were in bed with. Otherwise, let me know what you think and let's chop it up. Thank you guys.